I knew something was off when Carol from HR knocked on my office door and whispered, "Hey, you forgot to initial the new NDA." I never forget anything. That's why the damn companion like a freshly oiled turban instead of a flaming hoverboard. Strapped to a toddler. Still, I signed the paper, handed it back, and went right back to translating legalese into coded triggers for the $300 meters Macrovier merger. The one they kept announcing like a second coming at every town hall, but no one actually understood. 12 years. That's how long I'd been at Corlinks. Not loudly, not glamorously. It wasn't the ping-pong table crowd or a thecumbat slackers who wrote manifest about culture on our internal wiki. I was the one who made sure the merger protocols passed CT sniff tests who built the quiet integration. Lattice between Macrovia's creaking legacy system and our Frankenstein backend that had been duct-taped through 5 CTOs. You know, the boring stuff. The critical stuff. The stuff they didn't even know they needed until it was broken. And I had to crawl in at 2 a.m. on Christmas Eve to stitch it back together. That morning, I had 3 monitors open, 2 half-drunk coffees cold on my desk, and a post-it that said, "Ask Legal about Clause 9." Circled in angry red. Behind me, the office hummed with the usual startup bravado, project manager swaggering around. Like they invented him, devs arguing about whether Jessena was emotional enough, and one intern playing the same 30 seconds of a Kendrick song on loop until I nearly stapled his AirPods to the desk. And in the middle of all that, I sat there alone in my corner reviewing the final compliance for Macrovilla. My name, Amanda Delaney, sat right there on federal documentation. Third-party signatory, neutral witness, Clarence Celiason. I was the bridge. No one else in the company had that clearance. No one else even wanted it. The training alone was 6 months of red tape and APSA evaluation. It was like getting licensed to whisper into the Z's ear. They gave me the power, then forgot they did. I didn't mind. I like buying jingle. There's freedom in it. Used to build quietly while the loud people drown each other in buzzwords. It wasn't aiming for the spotlight. I just wanted my systems clean, my documentation tight, and my coffee uninterrupted. Oh, and by the way, if you're still listening and you're not subscribed, what are you doing? Hit that little button and give this a like. 90% of you are ghosts. I see the stats. Come in. Means the world to our little team sweeting behind the scenes. Making fee stories Bing-worthy. Okay, rant over. Anyway, the only people who really noticed me were the ones who knew how fragile the entire setup was. Terry Andelgo, Joanna, and Macrovia's compliance fist. My old boss before he pivoted Topaka farming or whatever Bernu Texas he landed on. Everyone else, I was just Amanda in integration. Quiet, middle-aged, overdressed, overcaffeinated, underappreciated. Then Tate arrived, but let's not jump ahead. That day, I logged into the clearance system to file my final. The Macrovia deal was supposed to close in 72 hours. My sign-off was the last step. Everything was aligned. Months of work. BCKEN protocols. Audit triggers, third-party sign-offs, cross-border data complianceability, except I paused. Something felt wrong. I couldn't put my finger on it yet. Not exactly. But I opened my personal folder, marked contingency, and double-checked the clause I'd highlighted months ago, just in case. Because here's the thing no one at Corlinks ever understood. I didn't build systems for them. I built systems in spite of them. Because I knew someday they'd trip over their own arrogance entry to throw someone like me under Thebus. And I wasn't going under. Not without a fuse lit and a locked door behind me. They say when a company wants to screw you quietly, they do it on a Wednesday morning with free bagels. That's exactly how it started. The email came at 9:13 a.m. all hands. Mandatory 10 sharp. Exact team intro plus org updates. Don't miss it. That's HR speak for someone news in charge and heads era going to roll. Entertain Mallory then you chief operating officer. Mid-40s aljoline and caffeine wearing a suit that probably cost more than my Camry. He had that startup cult energy. The kind off guy who thinks synergy is a personality trait and refers to spreadsheets as weapons of mass disruption. He smiled too much, talked too fast, called himself a fixer. I knew from minute when we're all already broken in his eyes. He spoke for 42 minutes straight, dropping words like agility, modernization, and legacy tech rot. People around me clapped like he was Moses coming down from a Wi-Fi-enabled Mount C. I just sipped my burnt coffee and opened my terminal fixing a broken data bridge no one else even knew was failing. 3 hours later, Cheryl Nakadagan. This time she didn't bring paper. She brought 2 people from HR, one with a clipboard and one with dead eyes. Amanda, can we speak privately? Translation, bend over. It led me into a side room like I was being told I had rabies. No eye contact, no water, just a manila envelope slid across the table like a ransom note. Tate didn't even bother showing up. The letter inside wash off buzzwords, half redundancy, shifting core competencies. Your role no longer aligns with strategic vision. I was still reading when the clipboard lady said, "You'll need to return your badge and laptop bear 300 p.m. The other one added, "Secur's already been informed already." I stood up, walked to the door, and paused. Something flickered just past corner of my eye. On the front desk where they kept lost keys and half-dead-ad office plants was a printed photo of my face. In red marker, Samiani had scrolled, "Do not let her back." On floor, not employee, not Amanda, just a threat tape to laminate. It hit me in the gut like a sucker punch in a parking lot. Had trained their last 3 CTOs. I had kept our biggest deal alive with duct tape and caffeine. I had missed funerals, birthdays, anniversaries to babysit their God-observer migrations. And now I was being treated like a liability wrapped in Spanx. I didn't cry. That would have been giving them a gift. I took a breath, walked back to my desk, packed me things into a cardboard box. The way people do in bad sitcoms, except this was real. My palms were cold. My heart was hammering. Everyone around me avoided eye contact like I had contagious failure. My assistant Kyle mouthed, "I'm so sorry," from across the floor. I gave him a nod and a half smile. Then I did 2 things. First, I handed him my badge. No scene, no speech. "No, you'll regret this." Just a quiet goodbye and the soft click of a lanyard dropped on polished fake wood. Second, I stepped outside, sat in my car, and unlocked my phone. I opened my Secure Vault app, accessed the encrypted key store, and I deleted 1 key. Not a password, not a file, a key store entry to my personal clearance secretariat used in every McVie integration handshake. Without it, the system couldn't verify identity for third-party sign-off. Without it, the merger couldn't close. Without me, they were holding a live grenade with no pin. I didn't smile. I didn't cackle. I didn't even breathe deeply. I just drove away, hands steady, eyes forward, because they thought they were building forward, but they just burned the only bridge they couldn't replace. I didn't even take my coat off when I got home. Just stood in the doorway staring at my keysin. My hand like they might dissolve if I blinked wrong. The house was quiet, too quiet. No Slack pings, no emails, no, "Hey, Amanda, quick question," followed 3 hours of unpaid labor. Just the ticking of the kitchen clock and the faint hum of the fridge. The box of my office life sat on the table like a dead pet. A mug that said, "I avoid warranties." A half-used notebook full of scribbled VPN tunnels and margin notes. And a tin of mints I kept for sugar crashes during late-night system tests. All of it felt alien now, like I'd been dropped out of orbit and landed in a diorama of my own burnout. I went straight to the hallway closet. Past the winter coats, behind the broken printer I swore I'd fix was an old fireproofable box. I dragged it out, popped Thelix, and flipped through tabs labeled in my own neat handwriting. Legal, clearance, protocols, red flag. Then I pulled out the folder marked contingent. I had prepped it 2 years ago, not because I was paranoid, because I paid attention. You don't sit in hamburger calls for 12 months. Listen to executives lie about redundancy planning and not start preparing for the moment they pretend you're optional. The folder was thick, too thick for someone who was supposedly legacy tech. I flipped past org charts, the platformer chitter. The SEC correspondence found what I was looking for, the original Macrovia protocol checklist. My name was printed on the bottom of every page as certified third-party liaison-neutral clearance authority. I flipped to the last 2 pages. Clause 9C. termination of named liaison without formal substitution and re-certification voids, compliance status and suspends the legal standing of acquisition protocol. Plain English. Fire me without replacing with someone who passes clearance and finishes. The checklist and the Merger Beckham's a $300 million legal paperweight. No, Amanda, no deal. I sat down slowly, the edges of the paper cutting into my hands like it knew what it was worth. I hadn't told anyone a Boothist clause because no one ever asked. Hell, most of them didn't even read the merger documents. They just handed McAfee and assumed I'd keep the train moving while they stood on the tracks posing for LinkedIn. Well, not anymore. I wasn't crying. That part of me had already gone cold in the HR office when I saw my photo taped to a desk like I was a threat to national security. This wasn't grief. This was precision. They didn't just fire me. They detonated their own timeline. And the worst part, they had no idea yet. They were probably in a conference room right now, high-fiving over my exit velocity and printing a new org chart with Tate's smirking face at the top. I flipped the protocol to the final sign-off line. My signature was supposed to go there. Thank was never going to touch it now. The checklist wasn't just a formality. It was a federal requirement. It tied into compliance databases, data privacy acknowledges, international banking gap rules. Every buried landmine Thelawires assured us wouldn't be a problem as long as I stayed on board. Oops. I leaned back, let the paper rest on my lap, and exhaled through my nose. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't sabotage. This was mechanics. You fire Thecky Stone, the arch collapses, basic physics. I grabbed my old laptop from the closet, powered it up, opened the encrypted drive I hadn't touched in 6 months. Inside, backup logs, keeper registries, liaison handchecker protocols, everything. They would now scramble to reconstruct from scratch with a guy named Dustin from it who still couldn't find the correct VPN on his 3rd day. I checked the logs, verified the deletion I made from my phone earlier had propagated to the federal handshake server. It had time-stamped, locked, irrevocable. They had no idea yet, but that was about to change. I sipped cold coffee from Theophis. Mug. Tomorrow, Macrovia wouldn't as something was missing, and the screaming would begin. The call took less than 4 minutes. I didn't rehearse it, didn't pace around the kitchen or scribble bullet points like I usually did before big meetings. I just sat there at my dining table, the merger folder open beside a bowl of cereal I'd stopped eating hours ago, and dialed that number I knew by heart, Macrovia Compliance. This is Greg Taylor. His voice was chipper. Too chipper for a man standing on the edge of a $300 million pit. Hi, Greg, I said calm and flat. This is Amanda Delaney. There was a pause, papers shuffled. A mouse clicked. Oh, hey. I was just looking at your final checklist. Actually, we were expecting your last sign off Summitimeth this week. Are you calling to confirm that went through? I leaned back in the chair, eyes tracing the sunlight pooling across the carpet like nothing. What's wrong? Not exactly. Just wanted to check in something in the process flow. See if there were any updates on your end before I submit anything further. Another pause. This one longer. Wait, you haven't submitted it? No. Okay, but why? His voice changed. The smile dropped off a cliff. They terminated yesterday. Silence like the air left the phone line. I'm sorry. What? No worries. It happens. Just thought you might want the information before proceeding. If you need formal notice, I can have my attorney draft something. He sounded like he was flipping through documents frantically, looking for any reference to that this might be a prank, a miscommunication, a bad Zoom connection. They fired you? He finally asked. I'm no longer employed at Core Links. My badge was revoked. Systems access disabled. Officially removed, but you're the named liaison. Your credentials are hardwired into the process. Your ID is listed in the acquisition binder. Interagency compliance flags are tied to your profile. We can't just switch you out. That's correct. I let him sit with that. I'll send you the formalities shortly, I added. Wouldn't want any ambiguity. And with that I hung up. No flair, no dramatics, just a scalpel slice straight through the spinal cord of their acquisition timeline. Then I called my lawyer, Daniel bless him. Didn't even ask why until page 3 of termination letter. By then, he was already drafting a 2-sentence substitute for Macrovia's legal team. Amanda Delaney no longer represents Core Link Systems in any formal or advisory capacity. Effective immediately, the sentence landed like a gunshot behind glass. The moment it hit, the brakes screamed, Macrovia froze final signatures, halted the merger account, locked outbound authorizations. Escrow triggers paused mid-breath. 5 minutes later, my system lit up. Secure access handshake failed. Key mismatch. Yeah, that's going to keep happening. Boys. Then I did something small. Petty, maybe intentional. Definitely. I opened my phone and scrolled to my old assistant's number. Kyle. Good kid. Still green. Still tripping over his own urgency, but smart enough to feel the floor shifting before it cracks. I texted him. They might want to check clause 9C. Just a thought. Hope you're okay. No smiley. No signature. 3 minutes later. What the hell is clause 9C? Everyone's freaking out. Did you hear something? I didn't answer. Let it sit. That wasn't cruelty. That was education. The kind you only get when the ice splits beneath you and you realize the lifeboat's left before you notice the water. I stared out the window. Sun slipping behind the neighbors' roof. Christmas lights blinking across the street like a nervous tick. It was March. I didn't feel smug. Didn't feel giddy. Just weightless. Something had shifted. Tectonic. And for the first time, I was standing exactly where I was supposed to be. They hadn't just handed me leverage. They wrapped it, tied a bow on it, and fed it straight to my front door. I didn't need to shout, didn't need revenge. I was the consequence. And they were about to learn what happens when you cut your foundation loose and pretend the house won't fall. By Friday morning, the storm cloud sat square over CoreLink's headquarters. No one packed an umbrella. Merger. Signing. 10 o'clock. At M. Full executive circus. Polished shoes. Power ties. Legal briefs lined up like dominoes begging to fall. Macrovia was supposed to roll in smiling. Press pen to paper and pretend it wasn't already done. 10 o'clock came. Then went. No Macrovia. No signatures. No calls. Just silence. At 10:12. Tate stood at the head of the conference room, clicking a Sharpie like it might turn into a wand and undo his mistake. Well, he said, forcing a grin, you know how legacy firms are. Slow, paper-heavy. We'll fix it internally.
He said it twice, like a prayer. Except the problem was already internal. 3 floors down.
Someone whispered about clause 9C. Kyle couldn't help himself. Bless his anxious Gen Z heart. He mentioned it to a junior analyst, who dove into the dusty shared drive. Found the original merger protocol Amanda uploaded months ago. Screenshot. Forward. By 11:37. It hit Slack. By noon. Panic had legs. General counsel stormed the hallway demanding signatory logs. HR melted down. Compliance froze. Invoices. Legal asked who approved my termination. The merger lead called. Macrovia got stonewalled. We are currently reviewing internal documentation irregularities. Please stand by. Corporate for you screwed this up, and we're not cleaning it for you. At 10:04 p.m. My phone rang. Locked number. Declined. CFO direct. Declined. Voicemail. I let it play. He sounded like a man standing on a bridge he just lit on fire. Amanda. Hi, we had a bit of a hiccup today. Wondering if we could clarify some compliance details. Nothing major. Dotting I's. Crossing T's. I played it twice. Deleted it. They thought it was a hiccup. They still didn't understand. It wasn't a hiccup. It was a lung collapse. I opened my laptop. Federal Liaison Registry. My name's still there. No substitution. Filed. No recertification. No alternate key. No key. No handshake. No merger. The more they panicked, the calmer I got, like watching a fire you didn't start. But you did remove the batteries from the smoke alarm. Quiet power doesn't beg for attention. It just exists. Kyle texted again. They're freaking out. Legal blaming IT blaming legal. Tate says it's a credentialing bug. Did you do this? I sent one emoji. Let them interpret it however they needed. I made grilled cheese. Watched Judge Judy. Answered emails for my other consulting gig. The one. I kept quiet, just in case. At 4 p.m. The invite went out. Emergency all hands. Conference room alpha. Subject line. Realignment and roadmap discussion. Translation. Damage control. I wasn't invited. Didn't need to be. At 9:06 a.m. Monday. The email landed. Subject : re. Pending merger. Immediate compliance review required. Body colder than the subject. Due to the unplanned termination of the listed third-party liaison without replacement, Macrovia Group is pausing all executional aspects of the acquisition. Obligations under Sections 4.7 and 9C remain unmet. Transactions suspended indefinitely. 4 lines. No spin. The kind of message that makes CFOs drop coffee and HR reps dry heave into recycling bins. I was in sweatpants, pouring almond milk into cereal, watching LinkedIn light up in real time. Finance blogs caught the scent. Macrovia exec posted, "Always verify your bridges before you burn them." Daniel sent the final letter 30 minutes later. Nota RIZED. Signed in blue. Short. Lethal die. I became an entity that afternoon. Quiet seal LOC. 11 minutes. Employee no more. Firewall now. My phone went silent. Boardroom tremors traveled 3 zip codes. Whispers spread. They rewrote history because the present was burning. That night, an unknown number texted, "Well played." I didn't reply. This wasn't a game. It was architecture. A single screw removed. A single key revoked. Signature never written. By Tuesday. Core link went into cardiac arrest. Board meeting. No slides. No coffee. Carl leaned forward, voice like gravel. Who authorized termination without transition? Silence. Someone leaked the security photo. My badge taped to the desk. Do not let her back on the floor. LinkedIn exploded. Tate sent an offer. Double salary, bigger title. Daniel replied for me. Clean. Clinical. Quiet seal. LLC. Available. Market rates apply. Retainer required. The narrative flipped overnight. I hadn't burned the bridge. I turned it into a toll road. Macrovia pulled out Thursday morning. Stock collapsed. Executives fled. I never went back. Friday morning. Courier arrived. Velvet box. Note inside. Next time they'll know who built the bridge. I placed it on my shelf. Quiet seal signed another client. One of them was Core. Link. 4 times the rate. No complaints. Morning light poured in. Coffee warm. Phone buzzed.